Cannon Radio with your hosts, Jared Logan and Joe O'Brien.
Hey, here we are. It's the first show. It's like making love for the first time. I hope I get everything right, and if not, I hope I'm gentle. I hope that I listen to your needs, Joe. And your needs, Naish audience. Let's
not forget
lovers.
The audience's needs sexually, of course.
Hi, I'm Jared Logan. You might remember me from the movie Stuber. I play annoying customer. I'm on screen for 5 seconds. And this is Joe O'Brien, who represents a number of voiceover artists in the New York area. So,
or at least used to.
Yeah, send him your auditions. Send me
your reels. Absolutely.
Your reels, and he'll land you the big gig. Welcome to Glass Cannon Radio, a show where we are going to dive deep down many rabbit holes of geek culture, all of our pop culture. Oh my God, we're getting off to a bad start. All of our pop culture obsessions will be discussed on this show. Joe and I are going to hold your hand and take you through a wonderland of geeky, nerdy, strange, niche, weird shit.
Yes.
And listen, the most important part of the show, Joe, is not our topics or you or I. It's the audience. The audience of this show can call in, can be part of the conversation. And the way they do that is if you're already a subscriber to the Glass Cannon, then all you have to do is navigate to our Discord and go to the Glass Cannon Radio stage. That's one of the channels there under shows. And then you can raise your hand when we start taking callers, and we will get you in on the conversation. I want us to celebrate the things we love together, but I also want us to fight about them.
Absolutely. I also want to celebrate the things we hate, the things we love to hate.
Yes.
I couldn't be more excited about this aspect of the show. Just like getting callers in here into our podcasts, using their voice, literally hearing their voice, right? On the show, on all manner of topics. And one of the things I'm most excited about is I think I'm going to learn so much. Like, there's so much to learn in the geekosphere, right? That,
Let me teach you, Joe.
You might not be exposed to without meeting different people and getting all these cool voices up here. So I'm super excited about that part.
Joe, let me be your father figure. Put your tiny hand in mine. If you are not already a subscriber to the Glass Cannon and you want to be part of the show, you can do that really quickly and very easily. Go to jointhenaish.com, sign up. You'll immediately have access to the Discord. You could be asking a question or giving your hot take in this show today.
Literally today.
If you go and do that right now. And, if you aren't into paying monies for things, maybe you use the free 30-day trial by putting in the code GCN30. So that's the little sales spiel. Let's get into what the show is. I just said we're doing deep dives on pop culture, geek obsessions, everything like that. We're always going to be talking about movies, TV, comic books, novels, tabletop role-playing games especially. And today we have a lot of really exciting topics. We're going to talk about the visionary director of genre art films, David Lynch, who we're very sad to say passed away a week ago on my birthday. Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And this guy is just one of the biggest genre filmmakers who made the strangest, most unique, most beautiful films. So we're going to be talking about him first. Then from there, we're going to transfer into what I'd say the biggest genre movie of the last month, which is Eggers' Nosferatu. Nosferatu. I hope people saw it. I want them to get on here, give their 10-second review, and let's see what the consensus is among the Naish, okay? Then, because we're already talking about vampires, we're going to talk about one of my top 5 favorite tabletop role-playing games, Vampire the Masquerade. I have a lot of experience with this game. I've played 68 actual play episodes of it, where I was the storyteller, not the GM, Joe.
Not the GM, storyteller.
The storyteller.
The challenge in this ep is going to be to keep you like within the borders of the show on this topic. I mean, you could speak for hours and hours and hours about Vampire the Masquerade.
We thought about doing a show just about Vampire the Masquerade.
Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, today, let's talk about the Salubri bloodline. But instead, we decided to broaden out and do some other things.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit of everything today.
Then we're going to get everybody's takes on that new Superman trailer for the James Gunn Superman movie coming out this summer. Oh, that trailer got me so excited because I'm a giant Superman guy. So I'm very, very stoked for that, and I want to know what you guys thought of the trailer, what your thoughts are, and then we're gonna finish it off with a segment I hope we do a lot, which is called Book Club, where Joe and I will talk about what we're reading right now, and I would love for you out there to sound off and let us know what you are reading. So all of that, and we're gonna have a contest.
Yes,
we're gonna have a contest, and we'll get into that in a couple minutes after we get the show really rolling. But before we do that, Joe, how's it going? How was your week so far?
It's going great, man. It's just awesome to have this show up and running. We've been talking about it for so long. We've been working on it in the background with our Vorpal subscribers who have been so awesome over the last year, literally helping us put kind of test shows like this up where they call in and we take not questions, but we take their comments and their points of view and look at them in all different ways, and that's been really cool. And it's all been kind of leading up to this in a way, a show where we can really connect with the audience and just talk about the stuff that you and I end up talking about while we're waiting, before Blood of the Wild recordings.
Absolutely.
And while, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that we do that's usually not on air is what we'll do on air now. The stuff that we end up talking about with fans at live shows, right? During meet and greets and stuff like that, just all the kind of outlier stuff that I don't know, is not really covered on our network right now. Our network really covers a lot of tabletop role-playing games, a lot of actual play, but there isn't a whole lot of geek pop culture sound off sort of platforms, and that's what this is going to be. So for this one, we're focusing on a lot of different topics. Jared and I chatting, which is awesome, but in the future, we've got so many ideas for guests we want to bring on and different kind of recurring segments we want to have and all different opportunities.
Tasteful nudity. Tasteful
nudes once a month. Yeah.
Artistic.
Artistic. But yeah, so I'm just so excited about this show right now. And it's going to be every week at Wednesday. Every week on Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific. You'll be able to catch this live on Twitch and obviously live on Discord.
For me. I'm having my coffee.
It's the morning drive show for Jared. It's the midday show here on the East Coast, and then we're hoping we of course get our friends in Europe around dinner time. It'll be great to be able to get as many people as we can in to chat and hang and talk.
I bet Shabarus is here.
Yeah, representing Ireland, of course.
Representing the Emerald Isle is what I call it. Faith and Begora. And Begora, I say.
What about you, buddy? How are you doing? How was your most recent trip? I know you were on a trip. You were
yes.
You did some shows.
Yes, I was out with my good buddy Kumail Nanjiani, who I've known since 2003. We were doing shows. I was opening for him. He's on his I'm Doing This Again tour, and we were in Charlotte, Durham, and Charleston. So we were in the Appalachian South. And I love those towns.
Charleston's on my my bucket list for the U.S. It's one of only, I think, 3 left or something like that. New Orleans is one of them. I've never been to New Orleans.
Wow.
Charleston is on there. And I just hear it's a very cool town.
It's different. It's got its own look and its own culture. It's definitely the I do declare type of the South,
Yeah.
Because the rest of the South is kind of like, get off my lawn. But Charleston is like, well, I'm having a mint julep on the veranda. That's the kind of South it is.
Nice.
And
nice.
I went to used or bookstores in every one of those towns. I found out where the bookstores were, and I went there because that's what I do when I go to a new town. And Durham was great. I had a place that was dipped ice cream where they just they give you a little thing of ice cream and then they pour a syrup on it, a chocolate or a strawberry syrup that hardens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, the chocolate syrup that hardens. Oh, so good.
I love anything that hardens. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
When stuff hardens, I get excited.
Yes, absolutely. But speaking of artistic, I'd love for you to talk a little about David Lynch. I want to get underway here because we had a whole different topic. We had a whole different show a week and a half ago when we were ready to go on week one of this. And unfortunately, you were displaced temporarily by the fires out in LA. And so we had to delay the start of this. And as the delay happened, the tragic passing of David Lynch. And then we said, you know what? We got to put this right at the top of the show because what a huge part of our inspiration for so many ways that we approach our role-playing games and stuff like that. So why don't you, I think you definitely know a lot more about his work than I do. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I've seen a lot of the films, but I haven't seen all of them. But I'll just say that, David Lynch, he's kind of amazing because he combined sort of surrealism with these, I would say like, very like quaint and classic depictions of like small town America, and all of his stuff had mysteries in it that a lot of times are never really quite solved. So you're always completely hooked, and a lot of them have the types of plots or endings that my wife hates, where it's just ambiguous.
Yes,
and she's like, "Wait, who killed who?" Like, and you're like, "That's not the point. The point." Is the journey that you went on into the human psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much to mine for mood, tone. The guy had an incredible ability to evoke a certain tone, which I think shows, that's when a filmmaker is next level, is when they have their own like emotional vibe to their movies. Because a lot of movies don't have that. So David Lynch, I'm just a gigantic, huge, colossal fan. Joe, what have you seen of his stuff?
I'd never watched Twin Peaks like episode to episode. I've seen so many scenes from it over the years that either people recommended, primarily Troy LaValle, would be like, you got to watch this. This is horrifying. Like these little things and that I've seen over the years that really gave me an idea of that vibe. The only Lynch movie that I ever sat and saw beginning to end is Mulholland Drive. And to this day, it is, I hated David Lynch after I saw that movie. Like,
okay.
I saw...
What made you hate it?
I think it was like your wife, like where at the end of it, I was like, what was that? Like, I was so mad. It created such an intense reaction within me.
How long ago was this?
When did it come out? Was it like 01, 02?
It would have been maybe something like that. Yeah, it was
so
early
right in that area, right? So now it's 2004, right? So 20 years ago is when I saw this movie, right in that range. And I had never experienced this feeling before of like, actually, I read something that really summed it up really well. There was an article about his passing in The Guardian, and there was a really good write-up on this stuff. And obviously, like a professional writer did a much better job of summing up this one feeling that I had, and this is why I was so upset. Here's a quote from the article. Lynch didn't want you to have a good time at his movies. He wanted you to have an interesting time, as if someone popped hallucinogenic drugs into your popcorn. And I thought, that's almost exactly how I felt, because I hate hallucinogenic drugs. I'm terrified of doing them or being a part of them. And the first time I saw it, I felt like I was literally tripping. Like, I didn't sleep that night. I kept waking up like in these weird dreams where I was like in that movie and seeing things from that movie. I went to work the next day. I was like a zombie. at the office, and people are like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "This is just."
I watched Mulholland Drive last night.
I'm going to sound like an idiot.
I can't talk right now.
I watched a movie last night that is making me so fucked up in my head. Like, I was so messed up. And so I basically thought that he was an insane person. I was like, whoever made this, because I didn't know David Lynch at that time. I didn't realize the connection with Twin Peaks and everything. I had heard of that show, but never really watched it. And I was just like, whoever made this is evil, is like the devil, because it is really
evil.
Well, it just infected my mind in such a way that it seemed like magic.
Joe was like, I have to take this to my Bible study meeting.
Right.
Joe, I disagree with you on every point you just made.
Fair enough.
Joe, first of all, I love hallucinogenic drugs, and I'm on them right now. Second, Mulholland Drive might be my favorite David Lynch movie.
How many times have you watched Mulholland Drive?
I've watched it 3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah, okay. For sure. Absolutely. And I saw it in the theater. So, and then also, I don't really agree with that quote that David Lynch didn't want you to have a good time. David Lynch films, in addition to being menacing, threatening, horrific, like you just mentioned, they are very funny. And there's a definite satirical edge to a lot of them. You know, Mulholland Drive is really about how terrible Hollywood is.
Yes.
And I can tell you from living here for 10 years. Yeah. If you were like, what is LA like? I'd be like, have you seen Mulholland Drive? It's like that.
Well, to take everything I said and put it into a compliment, it's one of the most impactful films I've ever seen, for sure, for me. Like, I've never had something affect me psychologically so much as that movie. And so it made me scared to ever watch another one of his movies, or even Twin Peaks. I was like, I don't want to see this. It's going to, keep me up at night kind of thing. But I don't know. Like, you say some of his movies are funny. Are there some that are funnier than others? Or there's some that like are not as...
Twin Peaks is very funny, and it's that juxtaposition of that sort of white knuckle horror. You know, the show is about a teenage girl that's been viciously and brutally murdered. But Agent Dale Cooper talks about how much he loves coffee and pie all the time. And the characters are all quirky and strange, and a lot of them are very funny and very idiosyncratic. The whole show is. And it's entertaining, and it is fun. Twin Peaks is fun. And I would say there are elements of that in the other movies. When I saw a screening of Blue Velvet last year at the New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles, people were laughing, at certain lines that Kyle MacLachlan was delivering, because the lines are funny and they're intentionally funny. So he's a genius filmmaker because he's able to combine all that stuff and make it work.
If there's one thing I should watch, what would it be?
Well, I think we should ask the Naish what they think you should watch. Or maybe they should come in and say, Joe, don't watch anymore. You won't be able to handle it.
I mean, I think that's a good enough segue to say that we should start getting some callers here. Like, we should get people to come in. If you want to suggest something that I should watch from the collection of David Lynch, or if you just want to talk about David Lynch yourself, or your experience, if you are in Discord, you just have to raise your hand. If you're interested in speaking, just click raise a hand, and then we can bring you up onto the stage here. You can talk right on the show, and we'll see what everybody has to say, as they weigh in on this. But I think that we could, this seems kind of, Lynch himself is too large of a topic to handle in a segment on a 2-hour show. I feel like we could spread this out over a couple weeks. Like maybe deep dive on one thing. Yeah.
We should do a Twin Peaks. We should do a Twin Peaks all by itself for sure. Because there's so much there. And then, let's keep coming back to this. But, before we take our first caller, I want to tell them what the contest is today.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Here's the contest. Our contest question is as follows, okay? David Lynch was so unique and so groundbreaking that there is an adjective to describe the type of filmmaking he did. Lynchian, right?
Yeah.
And very few artists have been given this honor. For example, Franz Kafka created the adjective Kafkaesque. So, our contest question is, who is someone that you think deserves their own adjective that describes their work, and what would that adjective be? All right? And the best answer is going to win.
Yeah, and you're going to win. I got a prize here. I've got a pair of Raycon Bluetooth gaming headphones.
Hell yeah.
For our winner. We'll ship it to you if you get the winning answer. And by the way, so this is not, there is no right answer per se. There's just the best answer as voted on by Jared and myself and our producer McD, who's on here as well.
Hey, what's up, McD?
What's up, McD?
Yo, buddy, shout out.
We'd love to hear your ideas of, I don't know, I guess it would be an artist. It's probably going to end up being an artist of some kind, but any person that really has such a body of work or such a vibe about them that they could almost have their own adjective. Who deserves to have their own adjective, and what would that adjective be? Jared, do you have an answer for this question?
Yes. There's an artist that I feel has a very specific tone, who has a very gentle and I would say almost aristocratic sort of feel to their work. Definitely erudite. And that adjective would be Capodicassin.
Capodicassin.
I enjoyed meeting him and talking about chess with him. He was very Capodicassin.
That's great.
Yes.
You're talking about the playwright, Matthew Capodicassin.
I am talking about the playwright Matthew Capodicassin. That's
yes, right. known for a very particular style, both in his work and in his interpersonal interactions, which could be described as a Capodicassin.
Yes.
I'm going to take one that this might already exist and I could just not realize it does. And I think it's kind of a big one that if somebody answered it, I would just vote for it. So I kind of want to eliminate it as a suggestion so that I don't just get swayed into one way. And that is Wes Anderson. I really love Wes Anderson films. I love that style. And I don't think I've heard that described as a style. I also don't know if it could be replicated. Do you think that David Lynch could be replicated, in the years from now, in the generation following us? Like, do you think that there are filmmakers that will be described as Lynchian that are not David Lynch?
That's an interesting question. I think that you're never going to really get that lightning in a bottle like he could every time, and his stamp was so unique. But there's definitely lots of filmmakers who are influenced by him.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go with Anderson-esque. I think it's Anderson-esque is the simplest way to describe it.
Sorry, Joe, that is incorrect. It is Andersonian.
Andersonian. That wasn't even on my radar. It was that or Wessian for me. Wessian.
Wessian?
I think
that sounds like a specific. You're from a specific county in England.
Yes.
Oh, he's a Wessian.
He's a Wessian.
Yes.
I think it's time to take it to the callers. So the flow for the callers is we bring you up, talk about what you want to talk about, whether it's David Lynch or something else you have on your mind, and we will finish that up by asking you to give an answer to this contest question. If you win the contest, you'll get this sweet prize. So let's go to the Discord here. We've got Curdy Bird. Curdy Bird has their hand raised, and I'm going to invite you to the stage, Curdy Bird. If you see that, come on up and join us. Check 1, 2. Curdy Bird. Nope. Your mic's not on. I don't see it as muted though. So your mic's not working, unfortunately. But keep working on it and raise your hand again and we can get you up here. How about Steve? Oh dear. Just Steve. I've invited you to speak. Come on up if you see that.
Holy shit.
Oh, whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
We have a caller. Okay.
We have a caller and a swear. I mean, literally right out of the gate. The one thing we were worried about.
Steve, you motherfucker.
Jesus.
Why don't you tell me what the fuck is up and what your fucking opinion of David Lynch is?
This already delivers. This is amazing. So this one's the gimme out of the group of Lynchian movies, but Dune, like watch Dune.
Right. So David Lynch directed the first version of the film version of Dune. I think it was 1984.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gigantic flop at the time, and he considers it a career failure. It made him go on to do more avant-garde stuff. What do you think of David Lynch's Dune?
I think the first time I watched it, when I was a baby when I watched it, I think I was like in my late teens, and there was a lot of like, what the fuck is going on here? It was really crazy. But it led me into reading the book, and then going back and watching Dune again and really appreciating it. And, I guess my hot take is I like that version more than the new version. But that might be a bit
Steve,
sacrilege.
Guess what? I'm completely with you, man. At least in regards to Dune Part 1 by Denis Villeneuve. When Dune Part 1 by Denis Villeneuve was out, I was like, man, I think I like the Lynch version better because it's weird. And the Dune books are weird. And the Denis Villeneuve Part 1 and even Part 2, they're not weird. They're cool. They look amazing. But they're really way more accessible for like, Joe Sixpack than the David Lynch Dune, which features all that weird stuff. Like you hear the characters' internal monologues in voiceover. Right, Steve? What's your favorite part?
Jared.
What's your favorite part of Lynch Dune?
I think when they introduced the Harkonnens and like Baron Harkonnen and how he just sort of like floats and he's just this big, round, pale dude. And I just remember that. Like, I think that was one of the things I remembered the most of the first time I watched it was just
David Lynch Harkonnen is vastly superior to Denis Villeneuve Baron Harkonnen.
No. I mean, I can't. And Steve, thank you so much for calling in. Being the first caller on Glass Cannon Radio.
Wait,
That's
does
awesome.
he get to answer the contest question?
I just kicked him out, so no. But I'll bring him back.
Steve,
I forgot.
I'm sorry. I love
Steve,
you.
we'll bring you back in a second so you can get an answer in on the question. Just raise your hand again. So I think that the idea that it is more accessible, yes, I agree with that. I think that we nerds can get a little bit too in our own world about what is and is not weird to the mainstream audience. I think I know for a fact, there are a ton of people that think the new Dune is super weird. And like, that's just because they, typically don't consume the kind of stuff that we are regularly consuming in the genres that we like. So I feel like it is, I feel like as a film, it was fascinating and extremely interesting. And I thought it was great. I would definitely watch it.
I don't know,
over
man.
This,
like the Denis
career
Villeneuve
flop.
Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Denis Villeneuve's Dune has like Jason Momoa making wisecracks. There are no wisecracks on Arrakis. If you read the novels, they have this very specific, very cerebral, esoteric tone that David Lynch was able to capture. While Villeneuve made excellent films, he did not capture the tone of the books. And to me, the tone of the books, the strangeness of them, is one of the core, most important things about them.
Well, I'm just gonna drop it there because honestly, we've talked about this. Like, we got to do a Dune show, so we're gonna have a Dune show.
Yes,
we'll dig into this more for sure. But for now, let's get to another caller. I don't know if they want to talk Lynch or what, but C-Fin is I've invited you to speak if you'd like to join. C-Fin, your mic is muted. I can see that on Discord. If you're able to unmute it, we'll get you on here. Hello. No, not working. All right. Well, we're all learning. Okay. We're all learning. It's a live show.
Half of the callers actually getting to talk is a pretty good ratio for the first show.
Actually, I think we're at 33% right now. Have been able to talk.
We are. You're right. Yeah.
Spice. Speaking of Dune, spelled differently though. Spice.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Spice or Spice.
I'm actually going to derail the conversation and bring up the contentious season 3 of The Return. I know it wasn't for the faint of heart, but it was truly 18-hour cinematic perfection. And I don't know, it was really cool given the 25 year time difference and how that, season 2 ended with that infamous scene of Laura Palmer going, "I'll see you in 25 years," and then the actualization of season 3, 25 years and 11 months later. I mean, that is poetic. And, you know, season 3 was David Lynch completely unchained. I mean, he had no restrictions. He threatened, him and Mark Frost threatened to walk out if they couldn't do it the way they wanted to do it.
Yep.
And I mean, that mid-season episode where it just went full Eraserhead, I mean, that was insane. That would never happen, and no one could ever repeat that again. Only Lynch has that kind of power. I'm currently rewatching season 3, and Kyle MacLachlan's performance playing 3 different characters, and somehow and Doug Jones so likable is, I mean, just such a power to his ability to really lock in on Lynch's vision. I think their dynamic is just like so incredible.
I agree with everything you're saying. Twin Peaks: The Return, the 3rd season, is so insane. It's David Lynch on hard mode, because if you're expecting to get the 1990s series, just another season of that, you don't get that. It's just exactly like you said. He's completely unchained, and he does something else with it that you're not expecting. And I really, really loved it. Yeah.
I just think it's very impressive. I'm not familiar with the work, obviously, but I think I've heard that multiple times, and I just think that it's very impressive. We've seen so many of these type of attempts to take something that was huge 20, 30 years ago and reboot it, redo it, do a few more, or make a film out of it or something like that.
Right.
And it so often just feels like a failure, and I feel like I've heard multiple times that it was fantastic, the return for Twin Peaks.
David Lynch's season 3 of Twin Peaks, it's so out there that you're not sure if it was a success or failure. You're just kind of like, it defies superlatives, is what I would say. It's really, really out there, as much or more than anything he's ever done. So yeah, great pick for favorite work. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Spice.
awesome. Is it Spice or Spice? How should we say your name?
Spice. One last thing, it really plays on the oeuvre of his work, because it's not limited just to the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, but Blue Velvet is required reading, as well as Fire Walk With Me. And then there's actually some books involved too, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. So it is just really comprehensive world building. I mean, the amount of dedication to that. It's not for everyone. In fact, Lynch didn't make this for anyone but himself. And I really respect it. It wasn't an algorithm. Like, this was challenging to watch. It wasn't meant to be likable. Like you said, it was meant to be interesting. And the more I get out of it. It's just so refreshing compared to the generic like slop that is being forced down our throats in modern media.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I will say, like, David Lynch was such an artist. And if you look up, just Google all the great things he had to say about his process and making art and what works for him and how he was able to, come up with ideas and take hold of them and develop them. There's he was so great. And if for somebody who made such inaccessible films, sometimes he was so transparent about his process. And so if you're someone who wants to write or make films, or he started as a painter, even just draw or paint, he was just a great guy to hear talk about creativity. And I think it shows in his work. Spice, you have an answer to the contest question? Spice, have we lost you? We've lost Spice. Listen, the only person to... what is the contest question? Who is someone who their name should be an adjective?
Because with their art.
Yeah, with their art. And what would that adjective be?
Maybe like Robert Eggers.
Yeah, and what would the adjective be?
That's a tough one.
Eggers is a hard name. Well, Esk is too easy, Joe. You can put Esk at the end of anything. It should be, well, go ahead, Spice.
Yes. I guess. Egger-esque.
Egger-esque. Okay, we're going with Egger-esque. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Spice. Great call.
Thank you, Spice.
Great call. Just a lot of hot takes there, and not hot takes in like
Spice got heated talking about
spicy. Spice got spicy. Yeah, Spice was fired up. It's like,
yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, that was awesome, and it made me think of. As you guys were talking, it made me think of, when we brought this up for the show, I just, started doing some digging and some reading on my own. And to juxtapose my opinion from 20 years ago that this guy was the devil, because I really did feel like he manipulated my mind. It was really surprising to read how beloved he is. And not just like from fans of his work, but from the industry and how many people describe him as, yes, weird and quirky and all that stuff, but a brilliant artist, but also warm and kind and like thoughtful and generous and all that stuff. Yeah. It's so refreshing because you want to hear about an artist that is uncompromising in their work and does their own thing, but also isn't an asshole that cuts out the whole world around them because they have to have things their way. It's a really great, lesson's not the right word, but it's inspiring to hear how appreciated he was, and I really think that's awesome.
What's the next movie, the next Lynch movie Joe should watch? Spice mentioned Blue Velvet. That's Spice a great one.
Said that Blue Velvet is required reading, quote unquote. So I feel like it's
absolutely. But for anybody that's really new to Lynch, my first thing to recommend would be Twin Peaks, because it is just like a TV show. It's a nighttime soap opera. It's very easy to get into it from that angle. And then you sort of get used to Lynch's tropes and his tone and his strangeness. So, but Blue Velvet, I don't want to tell you to watch a whole TV show series, Joe.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to watch all of Twin Peaks, but maybe I'll watch Blue Velvet.
Watch Blue Velvet, baby. It's good.
Should I watch it and talk about it next week?
Odd. Yeah, you should. I mean, if you have time. Joe, I don't want to give you homework every week on the Glass Cannon Radio.
No, I don't. I certainly don't need homework every week, but this would be fine.
Yeah, someone needs to give me homework because I'll do it. I like homework. So maybe a caller can give me homework. Are we going to take one more caller on David Lynch?
Yeah, let's take one more. I had brought up CFIN before, and their mic wasn't working. So let's try it again. Their hands raised again. CFIN still muted. I'm seeing something. Oh, there you got it. You got it.
Okay.
CFIN, you're alive.
All right. I saw Dune last year in the theater. There was a 40th year showing at a theater in Houston, and what really struck me was the soundtrack, which when you watch it on TV you don't get, but when you're in a theater, it was incredible. I think
David Lynch,
the band that did Africa, did the soundtrack. It just blew my mind.
David Lynch had incredible music in his films. And he often used the same composer, a guy named Angelo Badalamenti. And Angelo Badalamenti's compositions were so iconic, especially the Twin Peaks theme is an Angelo Badalamenti theme. And when the show would come on, you'd be like suddenly put into a certain mood by the music. So I'm not sure if Angelo Badalamenti did Dune, but David Lynch always had incredible use of music in his productions. Let's see if if Badalamenti did Dune.
CFIN, do you have an answer to the contest question about if
he
you
did?
Yes. Yeah. What was your answer?
Fantastic and lauded German filmmaker Uwe Boll.
Yes.
And
Blood Rain.
The adjective would be ew.
I love it.
That's great. Thank you, CFIN.
Yes.
That's awesome. I think we can fit one more in here on
Lynch.
More
call
and
about Lynch?
Just reminder, like, we're going to talk about David Lynch again in the coming weeks, maybe drill down a little bit more. But I feel like we can't just cover it in 30 minutes. So we'll get to more Lynch down the line. But for now, let's bring Vicky up to the stage. Vicky, you've been invited to speak.
Hello, it's me, Verdo, not Vicky, whatever.
Why does your name say Vicky?
I was being a dork.
Vicky.
For the radio show.
I thought you wanted to change your name for the radio show, so I said it different.
No, I'm sorry.
You want to be a whole new person. You want a new start.
A whole new world.
We'll pretend we never met Verdu Kai. This is Vicky.
Oh, she's
and
dog
she
water,
likes
as
to
my
party.
kids would say. Who knows who that is?
Are you a Lynch fan?
You know, it's funny. Y'all brought me up and everything, and I'm like, I just started watching Twin Peaks for the first time like a month ago, and I was like,
that's an interesting
I'm totally
perspective.
into it. Yes. So now I'm like, oh, I need to watch this first Dune movie. I never knew it was David Lynch. I'm like, now I want to watch it. I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and also Verdu Kai, when you're done with Twin Peaks, which it's not that long, it's only 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'm
you
almost
have to
done.
watch the Twin Peaks film Fire Walk with Me.
Yes. I was looking up what to watch next before the new show.
Fire Walk with Me is so scary.
Ooh, okay.
And it's got an incredible title.
How far in are
I
you?
know.
Verdu Kai,
I
how
am
far in are
about
you?
halfway through season 2 to where it's like they've kind of solved things, but now there's just other weird things happening.
So
And that's kinda why-
you're very far along, and also you're kind of where the only thing about Twin Peaks is season 2 takes a dip.
Yeah, that's what I read too. It's like, oh, okay, now I see why my sense of urgency to keep going kind of dropped off a little bit.
Yeah.
Does it frighten you at all? Or are you like just enjoying it?
Because I started watching it because of Get in the Trunk, and I was like, I need new creepy media. It does, but I'm also kind of expecting it. So I'm like, but yes, yeah. What was at the end of like episode 2 or 3, and all sorts of weird shit started popping. I was like, what? Where am I? What just happened? I have no idea what's going on.
If you're running Impossible Landscapes, you have to watch every David Lynch film. I hope anyone who's running that module has seen and enjoyed all of the works of David Lynch.
I watched, I was running Impossible Landscapes, and I had heard so many times how Twin Peaksian it is. And again, I would, watch some scenes and stuff like that, and I would think about what scared me in Mulholland Drive, and I would do that in my game, over and over again. And I feel like it creeped the players out a great deal. Verdu Kai, what is, give us a person that deserves their own adjective.
Okay, so this is not a film director, but
that's fine.
My 80s baby brain went straight to John Williams.
Oh, I thought of that too.
The second you hear John Williams' score, you know it's John Williams.
That is true. The GOAT, as many call him in the composer world. What would that adjective be?
So far, the best I've come up with is Williamsonian.
Williamsonian. Yep.
Williamsonian. I like it.
I know it's kind of long though, so it's like
that's all right. It kind of sounds like Smithsonian, so it has a really good quality.
The Williamsonian sounds like the busted budget version of the Smithsonian that's like in a different part of DC.
Yeah. That's a great answer. I actually thought about making that my answer because it really is so standout. The one thing I wonder is like, will more composers down the line sort of like, do homages to that style? Or is that style so out of style that you wouldn't find it in films in the coming decade or two? I don't know. What do you think? I always associate John Williams with kind of a bygone way of doing soundtracks.
What do you think, Vicky?
Oh, I was asking you, Jared. Vicky,
me?
Vicky's gone.
Great question.
Vicky.
Here's what I'd say. I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting question, though. I think that what you see a lot today with filmmakers is being very open about their influences and their homages. So I feel like if someone did do a Williamsonian score now, it would be very intentional and it would be made for you to sort of get the connection, with John Williams. But you're right. You don't really see a lot of that like big, grand, sweeping orchestral soundtrack to a lot of things. Movies have gotten smaller in some ways, so maybe that's part of it. But
they've also gotten like, if you think about Dune, about Villeneuve. How do you pronounce his name?
I believe it's Villeneuve.
Villeneuve's Dune. They're droney. Right? It's droney is such a big thing now. And, there was a lot of it in Blade Runner 2049. A lot of that droney sort of, I love it. I think it sounds great, but it's just like kind of in style right now. Let's keep it moving. We will come back. There'll be more to talk about on Lynch in the future, but I really want to talk to you about your reactions on Nosferatu, because we talked about it going into the holiday. You were like, this movie's coming out, you should see it. And I was like, I don't really do horror. And you were like, go see it. So I went and saw it, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
Well, what a great Christmas movie, first of all. A movie about a woman that needs to get, oh, by the way, spoilers, that needs to get fully penetrated by a vampire. Merry Christmas, everybody. The movie, it's by Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, which I love. Have you seen The Witch?
I have not.
The Witch is incredible. This
is a huge blind spot for me. Is all of horror as a genre. Yeah. It's just a big blind spot for me.
Yeah, he did The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman before this one. So he's really interested in period settings, and I love a period setting. The Witch is set back during those Puritan settler days, those sort of early settlers in the United States. That might be my favorite of his, because I found Nosferatu. So Nosferatu is based on the old film Nosferatu by F.W. Murnau, about a vampire that comes to England or a town in Germany, forgive me, in Nosferatu, and begins preying on certain women there and breaking their will to him. And that movie, Nosferatu by Murnau, is based on Dracula. So much so that the widow of Bram Stoker successfully sued F.W. Murnau because he had copied the entire plot of Dracula, A to B to C.
It's extremely bold thing to do.
And Stoker's widow won, and they almost destroyed, because of the way the copyright law or whatever, or the way the case worked back then, they almost destroyed all the copies of the film Nosferatu. But luckily, some survived to this day. So this is Eggers, this incredible, sort of genre period filmmaker, doing his take on the Murnau film. And it's just one word to describe it would be sumptuous. It's just filled with all these little details, and it lingers, and it shows you all the little bits of grime, and also all the beautiful. I mean, one of my favorite things about it is you get to walk out onto a city street in Germany in 1837, 38 or something like that, and it's all completely realized, and stuff like that I really love. But the movie is too long and a little bit boring.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
My 2 cents. My hot take. Look, I feel like it repeats its beats quite a few times. You see Lily Rose Depp, who I think gives a great performance. You see her have a reaction to the influence of the vampire over and over and over and over, sometimes in the same way. I would like to see it develop in a different way, or a little quicker, maybe develop a little quicker. I think it's kind of slow and ponderous, this film, and I think that takes away from the horror, and I wish it was a little bit more lean, and I think it would have been a better film. And I say this as a director myself. You may have seen my film There Will Be Blood, or my film Boogie Nights. I'm also a professor of film at the USC Film School, and I've written over 15 feature films that have been made. So
that's how you know that this just needed to be a little tighter.
Those are my credentials. Look, hey, you don't really have to be a filmmaker to have an opinion. They're like assholes. We all have one. But I am right about this.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree on the length. I do think that there was some dragging. I felt like there was a little bit of dragging. I also, well, a lot of times for me with movies, I will give movies that to me are not masterpieces from beginning to end. I will give them a very special place and a good grade. if they have any moments that really hit hard, that really get me in a place where I'm inspired or where it makes me think, or it makes me think something different about how I would approach a show or the artwork that I do, or approach even just watching movies or appreciating cinema. And I will say that very early on in the movie, before it got too long, right, or drug a little bit, the scene when our sort of hero, I guess, is her husband, Nicholas Hoult.
Is
first going to the castle, right? The manor, whatever it is, to Transylvania, right? We're going to say it's not Dracula, but it's basically Dracula. And so when he goes there to meet with this count in order to get his signature on some real estate papers, I loved that scene from top to bottom because it was so frightening in how distorted and non-linear it was. And it was done in such a way that I thought that this was like really, I didn't know if this was part of Bram Stoker's Dracula, right? That this was like, and when I looked into it, like it is.
Yeah.
Right?
So
like,
as someone who's read the novel Dracula, there is this sense that Dracula is so evil, is such an elemental force, that it's kind of hard to interact with him. He's almost like a Lovecraftian god.
Yes.
And in the novel, people, grown adult people are constantly like, they see him and they're like, oh, and they faint. And you're like, everybody's fainting. Like, it's the opposite of an action movie, you know? Like, everybody that sees Dracula gets the vapors. And I think that that's a really cool and unique aspect of the story. And kudos for Robert Eggers finally bringing that in, because that's not really in a lot of the other film versions of Dracula that we've seen.
Well, I think it's very hard to craft and then shoot. And to me, it felt like the way that I would love to run a Delta Green game, or a situation where where the player's mind, the player character's mind is being manipulated, but they're not 100% sure of that. And you can't really tell how. And it's not necessarily just pure evil, right? Like, because there were, like, every time you saw Nosferatu in this, he was in that scene, he's sort of just out of sight, right? Or like just kind of at the corner of your vision. And then whenever you do kind of like start to see where he is, he just suddenly, pardon me, he just suddenly like isn't in the room anymore, or he's behind you, or you're sitting in a different room by yourself reading a book. You know what I mean? And you like snap awake as if you were imagining that happened. The way that all was cut was so good. I loved that part.
You've sold me on that sequence. That is really cool that he kind of captured that sort of nature of Count Orlok, that Count Orlok is sort of
right. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Yes, Count
exists
Orlok.
in a different time, space, rhythm, or affects you so that you become sort of unstuck in place and time while you're around him. I love that.
Yeah,
now,
and
I really want to know. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just felt like he did a good job, Nicholas Hoult and the director, obviously, of like making him in those moments just be kind of, you know, like not acknowledge it, like keep ignoring it. Then it gets really horrifying. And when we see him later, after he's kind of escaped and everything, he describes all of this, you know, that it was, you know, I couldn't explain it. It was like a dream, and it was like he captured me and I was trapped and blah, blah. It was really cool. But in the moment he didn't know. And so he wasn't immediately like, what's happening here? He just sort of kept going along with it. I just need a signature. So cool. So cool.
And it's all done with filmmaking, right? You know, in that specific scene, it's not like I feel what happened to me. Why am I in a different place? Instead, they just kind of show sort of from his point of view. I want to know what the callers thought of the movie, love or hated or somewhere in between. And I specifically want to know what they thought of Count Orlok's mustache. A lot of people had a problem with the very large mustache. I will say, canonically, Dracula should have a mustache as a voivod of that part of Europe. They, those guys traditionally had big mustachios. So let us know what you thought of the movie and the mustache. Should we bring some people up?
Yeah, let me try to get, let's get Travis up here. Travis, I've invited you to the stage. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. What's up, Travis? How you doing?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Pretty bad. I got like a kind of a diarrhea thing going on.
Like right now?
I had a lot of cottage cheese earlier.
Jesus.
Well, that'll be fun cleaning
Well, there you go, Travis. Lesson learned. Never ask Jared how he's doing.
I should have opened with the long-time listener, first-time caller bit.
Yeah, there you go. Good
long-time listener. You mean the last 20 minutes?
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
My first instinct was to argue with Jared about the length of the movie, but going back to it in my head, I spent probably 15 minutes thinking about my next Blades in the Dark session while watching that movie.
Yeah.
Because we were going to fight Dracula as a Christmas thing.
Cool.
So I was like, yeah, maybe it was too long. If I had time to be thinking about that rather than enjoying the movie.
Your mind wandered a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah.
To me, that's the sign of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be logic that dictates why something is dragging. Sometimes it's just your natural. You realize, like, oh, I was thinking about something else for a minute, or I checked my watch. If anything like that happens, you kind of that's the sense that a film is dragging. But overall, you liked it. It
not ideal. Doesn't mean the film is terrible, but it's not ideal if your attention's kind of floating around.
Overall, I thought the movie was fantastic. Like I just put in chat, but the scene where you see Nicholas Holt's face straight on as the camera's approaching the fire, the look of horror on his face was like utterly believable.
I just got chills. That was I remember that now. That was a good horror face. He did a good job, Nicholas Hoult, on that scene, because it was really scary just seeing his face. That was a good moment.
Nicholas Hoult, great casting. Because you believe that he's a guy that could not give Lily Rose Depp an orgasm. You absolutely believe that he's incapable of providing that for her.
Her acting was insane in that movie. Like, say what you will about her seizures in her episodes dealing with the Nosferatu, but like the way she went from one end of the spectrum to another in that one scene where she's yelling at Holt's character was amazing. Like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I loved her acting in this. I thought she was great.
She was super intense. Yeah, it was a really good job. Travis,
and as Johnny Depp's daughter, she has experience with dealing with people like Count Orlok.
For real.
Yeah.
Do you have an answer to the contest question, Travis?
Oh God, I've been banging my head against the wall thinking about this since you asked it, but. Going a little off of the media end of the spectrum, I was thinking about John Scalzi's books, and
Scalzi,
he's got. I mean, he worked on the Love, Death, Robots a little bit, but like all of his books have a very unique voice that's easy to pick out. So
Old Man's War is the one I read. I loved it.
Yes, and I read that all of those, and those are fantastic. But it would just be Scalzian.
Scalzian.
That sounds good. Thank you, Travis. Thanks for the call. Yeah, it's kind of like. Almost you could just take his last name in a way. Just be like, it's Scalzi. Like, you know what I mean? It almost sounds like a descriptor in and of itself.
I don't know. It's kind of Scalzi.
Yeah, a little Scalzi for my taste.
Yeah.
But no, Scalzian. Good answer. Let's see if anybody else has thoughts on Nosferatu. Scram, you there?
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we
can hear you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, boys. I did not see this movie. My hand is still raised from the David Lynch.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That was going to happen.
It doesn't matter.
What's your thought on Lynch?
I am on the Joe Sixpack team. I watch things, and I don't think I'm smart enough to get a lot of things. Like, I tried getting into Twin Peaks, and it was really slow. And I have ADHD, and I was like, I got to run a mile instead because this is just not getting it for me. But I want to like it.
Hey, whoa, Scram. We do not talk about exercise on this show, okay?
I'm sorry. I forgot my target audience.
We didn't even hint toward it.
Yeah.
I want to get into Lynch so bad, and it's just such a slow burn, and I realize it's just not my style to like a slow burn, you know? I prefer a fast food type of meal.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scram, what is a favorite movie of yours, just to kind of get your taste?
I would
What's
say
a Scramsian sort of film?
Yeah, what's a Scramsian film?
number one with the bullet would be the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad that came out a few years ago. I think
Whoa. Say again? Oh, the Suicide Squad?
The Suicide Squad?
Oh, great. Okay.
There was a James Gunn version of Suicide Squad. Why name it something else when you could just use the old name? And that is so fun. The characters are good. And it's just fast in a way isn't.
It is fast and furious. It's kind of like,
the whole time.
So you like to be overstimulated, huh, Scram? Maybe like a couple shots of espresso before a movie goes.
It's my ideal, and it is truly my ideal, which is going to be, I don't know, hard to sit through. But I think February I'm going to watch all of Twin Peaks. I'm committing.
David Lynch is the opposite of a superhero movie. It's kind of on the far other end of the spectrum.
But I hear you, Scram. I feel like I'm in the same boat. Not that I don't like his work necessarily. I haven't really delved into it that much, but that I feel like I want to like it, but it's just not my style, and it's hard for me to get into it. But I do want to give it a shot, which is why we were talking about some of this required reading, as Spice said. Scram, do you have an answer to the contest question?
Yes, and it's going to sound so much worse now that I gave this answer of me not being able to pay attention to movies. I think we should be using the term Bay Area for any film that is over the top with explosions. Signature Michael Bay.
That's a great answer. It's kind of in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's in the Bay Area. It's really ridiculous and over the top, and the acting's not great, but it's fun if you're like in middle school, you know?
Absolutely. Dude, it's fun for me. I like a good Michael Bay flick. Thank you, Scram. That's a great answer. Bay Area. It's in the Bay Area. Have you seen this film?
That's a great answer.
That's awesome. Man, let's see if we can get a Nosferatu up here. Roberto has their hand raised. Was it from Lynch or was it from Nosferatu? Roberto, are you there?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can. What's up, Roberto?
Hey, what's up, guys? First time listener, first time caller.
Yeah, yep, there you go. Everybody's a first time listener today, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I'm hand raised for Nosferatu, just so you guys know. Make it clear.
Okay, great.
I wanted to be clear that I had an interesting experience with this movie because I ended up promising my wife's cousin, hey, I'm home for the Christmas time. Let's watch this movie. We bought the tickets, and then I ended up hanging out with friends the day before, and they're like, hey, we're going to go see Nosferatu right now. So I saw it 2 nights in a row.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you're the most qualified person to talk about this film.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts?
So I will say, I'm a big Dracula vampire guy. I actually love the original Bram Stoker's Dracula book. And I even like the movie with Keanu Reeves. I'm all about it.
Right on.
But when it came to this movie,
Roberto, sorry, I'm going to pause you there for 1 second because we're about to go in more into some other kind of vampire, genres and stuff here when we talk about Vampire the Masquerade in a little bit. And so we'll depart from Nosferatu the film, talk about the wider thing. You say you're a Dracula fan. Is there a way for you to distill for me very quickly, in a sentence or two, like, why do you love Dracula so much or this kind of story or entertainment so much? What really jumps out to you?
I think it really comes down to the fact that it's the beginning, right? Like, this is where the vampire lore comes from. This is where it got built from. And when I also think about Dracula, I think about the Bram Stoker as a whole. Like, I don't just think about, Dracula is really cool. I also think about, I love the Van Helsing character. Like, I think about all the characters. I mean, really, when you go back to original Bram Stoker Dracula, I even love the group of guys who had to get together with Van Helsing to help hunt down Dracula. I like the whole era
Dr.
of it.
Dr. Seward.
Yes.
Quincy, the Western guy.
Yeah, that ridiculous guy in the movie.
Yes.
Another great mustache. We have to. we have to say
That's
that.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, thank you. So, back on topic of Nosferatu, your thoughts on that film?
So I will say this is not a movie for everybody. I have to say it right off the bat. But I enjoyed it actually more the second time I watched it, and I don't know why. Like I actually, the second night in a row, I end up watching this movie, and all I can think is like, wow, it's still spectacular, like visually. I will also like,
I agree.
mean, and I also went into the second screening thinking there are those moments, when the movie cuts to black and white, and I'm going to try and figure out exactly why. And so I kind of gave myself a little game the second time I watched it to be like, okay, why are they kind of black and white? Can I connect it to the story? Can I figure it out why these moments are happening? I mean, honestly, it just seems like every time they're dealing with Nosferatu, that's when they cut to black and white. Whenever they're in a dreamlike state and he's talking to everybody, talking to Lily Rose Depp. I mean, but at the same time, I also thought the mustache was epic. When I first
Thank you.
It was when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is exactly what a guy from this era in this area of Europe should look like.
Yep.
And I also saw that they were trying to obviously make it more like the original kind of vampire lore where a spirit would just take over a dead body. And when you really looked at the idea of how Nosferatu looked, I was like, oh yeah, he's got this whole like, I'm a just decaying corpse of a that's just been completely taken over and I'm here to ruin your dreams.
That's a really good point. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, but why don't you give us an answer to the contest question?
Can you remind me of the contest question? I joined you guys late.
We're looking for an artist that of any kind that should have their own adjective to describe their body of work.
Like Lynchian or Kafkaesque, but you have to tell us the adjective as well.
Okay. I really think it's easy to go with I love James Gunn. He's one of my favorite directors. And when you look at his work, you can just say, hey, that product got shot by a gun right there.
Shot by a gun.
By a gun.
With two ends. Hey, shot by a gun. It's like, oh, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, that's James Gunn's work right there. It was shot by a gun.
There you go. Thank you, Roberto.
Great answer. I just want to say I want to do like him, and I want to see the movie again. Even though I didn't love the movie, there's something about it that makes me want to see it again, and it's probably because it has all of that fine detail and that visual sort of daring. I kind of want to just take all that in again.
Yeah. I like he brought up a good point that I thought during the film I didn't voice yet, which is most of my experience, honestly, with vampires is either Interview with a Vampire or The Vampire Lestat. I remember I read that many, many years ago, or, Vampire the Masquerade. And so there's a certain, kind of like sexy vibe among vampires. And while this was sexual, it was not sexy. And and the whole aspect of him being a rotting, like zombie-like corpse was very different than my other interpretations I've had of vampires. Yeah. And I thought it was very cool and really made it feel like, holy shit, this thing is dead. Like you don't really feel that way so much with some of these other takes.
With Gary Oldman, you don't feel it.
Right. Exactly.
With Gary Oldman, you just want to have sex with Gary Oldman.
Jesus Christ.
Everybody think about it for a minute. Think about sex with Gary Oldman.
I want to bring Clancy up here. Clancy, I hope that you have
Clancy's a huge vampire and horror fan, I know.
Nosferatu.
Hello.
Hi, Clancy.
I thought I had mentioned I didn't see this one.
Oh, no, that's all good.
Oh, that's okay.
But you are a vampire fan in general?
I am a vampire fan in general. I just can't see
a sexy vampire
movies.
fan.
Sometimes sexy vampires, but sometimes I like bad vampires too. I like a bad boy,
Sure. I like a bad boy. A corpse boy.
I like a bad boy. I like a bloodsucker boy.
Nice. So why haven't you seen Nosferatu? Just busy, or are you not interested?
I'm interested. I can't see films at the theater because I get migraines. So I just have to wait until I can and watch it. But it sounds amazing. I love Eggers. I love vampires. I was kind of intrigued. It sounded like there were obviously there's plot overlaps between Dracula and Nosferatu, but it was kind of, I'm very interested in the horrifying vampire and the Bill Skarsgård of it all.
Well, yes, Bill Skarsgård's great. He's great. What's your favorite vampire thing that's out there? I mean, a book or a movie or TV, anything?
I really like The Passage, the book by
Justin Cronin. Yeah, I read that.
The horrifying vampires are really my favorite. I enjoy a sexy vampire too, of course, but
the vampires in The Passage are feral, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like a zombie apocalypse, but with vampires.
Yeah, it's like a virus, and and then there's like 12 main vampires that are kind of taking over different sections. Like it does sort of work into the Vampire the Masquerade sort of framework too, where they have like the different clans and such. But these are they were testing these vials on prisoners. So of course you've got the probably the worst people in the world who now have immortality and the ability to spread it, and
wow, so the worst really people horrifying. In the world, the worst people in the world being in charge. That is a science fiction universe.
What a weird thing to imagine.
What a strange fantasy premise. I'm glad it could never happen here.
Clancy, do you have a submission for the contest question?
I have, because first I was thinking, like, obviously Hitchcockian already. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot about Hitchcock when I think about Lynch too. Like I see a lot of hints of the way that, he frames things and sort of the bigger picture. And of course his fascination with blondes. He's got sort of the Hitchcockian love of blondes. Mm-hmm. But I thought of John Waters. I really love John Waters movies to take it outside of horror.
Yeah,
and so you could just call those wet. These movies make me wet.
And they kind of literally are. They kind of like Crybaby is very wet. There's crying and then everybody's got a wet head and it's just
yeah. It's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Serial
Clancy.
Mom's my favorite, so.
Okay. Serial Mom is a Kara Klenk favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I want to meet your wife.
That's
we'll make
awesome.
It happen.
Thank you, Clancy. Good call.
Thanks, Clancy.
Just describe them as wet. This is great. Even better than I expected. I certainly didn't get too creative with mine. This is awesome. I want to go to Twitch chat for a second because there's been a couple of great comments. Like I agree with War Historian who said just George R.R. Martin's Fever Dream is pretty good.
I've never read that.
I did read that, and that is pretty good. And then I love Foreman's take here on the Twitch chat, which is love The Passage. Feels more like a real take. They wouldn't be hiding and brooding. Vampires will kill everyone.
Yeah.
That is a funny way to put it, but not that much of a stretch. And I think War Historian also said Nosferatu makes vampires scary and dark again. Mm-hmm. And I do like that aspect. Jared, we talked about, when we brought up Nosferatu, I was like, there's a lot of different vampire artwork, works of art out there, works of media out there. And over the years, the last 20, there have been big staples in pop culture, particularly, when Twilight became so huge. Mm-hmm. And you got angry when I even said the word.
Twilight is not for me. And
you're so much calmer now. What happened?
Well, the reason it's not for me is because it sort of ruined vampires for a while. I tend to not like anything in the teen heat genre. And I especially don't like anything in the paranormal teen heat genre.
That's understandable, of course.
I mean, maybe that's for the best since I am a 45-year-old man. It would be a little uncomfortable if I was like, what's this high school girl? What boys does she like? I want to see them together.
But
all that said, I am Team Jacob. Okay, go ahead.
But I do think that kind of contributes. And people love Twilight. I've never seen Twilight. I don't have anything negative to say about Twilight, except it does start to, put vampires out there as not a horrifying thing necessarily.
Well, it completely abandons some of the interesting things about them. For example, not being able to go out during the day. The fact that they are creatures of the night. And then it adds insult to injury by going, not only can they go out during the day, but they sparkle. Do you know about the sparkling?
No.
Vampires in Twilight sort of glimmer and sparkle.
Huh.
It's bad. It's bad.
What about, and I never saw this one either. What about True Blood?
True Blood I really like. And True Blood is gonzo. It's like a soap opera taking to these ridiculous, exaggerated extremes. Particularly the later seasons are really nuts. But I kind of like that about it. It's taking huge swings the whole time. And you're right, that is a bit of like a soap opera or a romance, but it still worked better for me than like Twilight. Yeah, maybe just because the core audience it's supposed to be for adults, not for teenagers. So yeah. It goes there a little bit more than Twilight does.
So how do these vampires, in your opinion, all these different versions of it come together in the tabletop role-playing game Vampire the Masquerade, which I had heard of, for many, many years. Even when I was a kid, there was like a version of that, wasn't there? Like, hasn't it been around since like
1992, I believe, is when the first edition of Vampire the Masquerade, it might have been 90, by Mark Rainhagen was the designer. And it really was sort of a revolutionary game because it abandoned the like heavy tactical bent of a lot of role-playing games, like the heavy combat-oriented nature of a lot of games, for a game that was much more social. And Vampire the Masquerade, it's really not about combat or, exploring a setting like a dungeon. And it's a lot more about the other personalities in the world that you create with your players. It's a game about NPCs. If you're going to play Vampire the Masquerade, you need fantastic NPCs. And it's also brilliant because it took a genre concept that we all know all about, vampires. We know all the tropes, right? And so it's very easy for you to jump in and play vampire tropes. It's a little harder if I brought you the Dune role-playing game or the Blade Runner role-playing game. Those are cool, but you might not know enough about that world to feel super comfortable. But everyone knows what a vampire is and what their weaknesses are and sort of how they work. So it plays on all those tropes, and you can play a vampire that combines some of those tropes and leaves others out. I think it's just a fantastic game. It's in my top 5 role-playing games of all time. I always want to play it. If someone was like, would you run it for me tomorrow? I'd be like, please let me.
I think you've set up pretty well why it's a good game to try out or to start playing. Why do you love playing it so much, even now, 30 years later? Why do you still love it? Don't these stories, don't these tropes kind of get old? How do you make it fresh? How do you make it new? Like, is it partially the game mechanics? Like I guess the question is, what is fun about playing the game?
So great question. And I think that it's a issue of like, it's a game about ethics, and like, how far you're willing to go and become the villain. And the mechanics support that incredibly well, particularly the new version that came out in the last 5 to 10 years. They call it 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade, because acquiring blood becomes a very important part. And so when I played a long chronicle of it, the players constantly needed to get more blood. They needed to feed again and get more blood so that they could not only use their powers, but just sort of survive. And so you were constantly like weighing, like, who is it okay to drain from? Who is it okay to kill? Where do we find these victims? And that is just an interesting kind of like process to repeat over and over. And you have to repeat it in the game. So you're faced with these ethical questions all the time, which sometimes ethical questions can be a lot more interesting than we need to destroy this evil wizard because he's evil and that's, and we need to get his money and his stuff.
Yeah. Does Vampire the Masquerade in and of itself, like if I got the 5th edition book and does it make it easy for you to do genre vampire role-playing games? Because, settings, because you were...
Let me check.
The only one that I ever played, the only session I ever played was with you. It was at Gen Con. It was a one-shot, and it was set in a disco in like 1974 or something like that.
Right.
And it was awesome.
We had fun with that one.
Is that facilitated in the book, or is that something you kind of have to bring to it? Do they go into any detail on the campaign setting over centuries? Like even if it's a little glimpse, one page. In the 1970s, here's how the princes were structured, and do they do that kind of stuff?
They absolutely give you a history.
Okay.
But it is way more focused on a modern era of vampires. And that's another thing I really like about the game. How many games do you get to play that are in the modern era in a world like ours?
Yeah.
A lot of games are not based like that. Now, Delta Green is, so that's a good example. But it's cool to be able to play in a recognizable place. And when I played Vampires of Pittsburgh, my chronicle on Stream of Blood, I was able to just like look up maps of Pittsburgh and, look up businesses there and look up interesting locations and go, what if that place was haunted, and that's extremely fun to have your resources just be like Google Maps. It makes it so easy to prep things and to
improv things like on the fly.
And to improv things on the fly.
When things came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Your players always know how the world kind of works. They're dealing with familiar tropes with the vampires and a familiar setting, which is our world. So, yeah.
How does technology factor into it in this book that was released in the last 5 to 10 years? Like, is there any interesting vampire technology that comes into play at all?
Technology.
Yeah, like ways of extracting blood or ways that, like, is that any aspect
Joe,
of it?
If you choose to play as one of the Tremere, who are also known as the Maguses, the Magi of the vampire world, they experiment with blood in all kinds of ways. And in fact, practice a type of blood sorcery where they can like drain you from afar and things like that. It's not really technology, but they would definitely, experiment maybe with powering technology with blood and then there are also the thin blood vampires, who are so removed from the core blood source of Cain. Their blood is not like potent. So they can go outside during the day a little bit, and they can kind of do things other vampires can't. And they practice something called thin blood alchemy, where they kind of mix their blood with other things and get certain effects by like doing like basically chemistry experiments with their own blood. So there are the classic vampire tropes, and then there's like weird stuff like that you can get into if you want to kind of stretch the definition of vampire.
Do you ever kill PCs in that game? Like, can you die? I mean, I'm sure you can, but like, how does it work?
Yeah, so you can die. There are combat rules. There are health levels. The health levels can be depleted. With a vampire, if a vampire takes aggravated damage, which is, normal damage, the vampire heals right away. But aggravated damage would be like from fire or from, a weapon yielded by a true believer of the Holy Cross or being decapitated. It's very hard for your PC to come back from some of these things. We had a PC that we declared was destroyed because he was pushed out of 40th story window, and there wouldn't be much vampire left after that, right?
Yeah.
So, these things can kind of destroy a vampire, but I will say it's not really a game that is concerned with taking out the PCs. It might not be a game where your goal is to survive, from night to night and getting blood, sure, but
you have much loftier goals than just surviving.
You're trying to take over the city, know? You're trying to manipulate and get into the corridors of power. I mean, that's the default way the game could be played. You could also play it as vampires on the run, nomadic, in Near Dark, who are just trying to survive night to night. But you're not really concerned that much with character death, I'll admit. In fact, the game has rules for combat that I really like. One is called 3-2 done. 3-2 done is this suggestion for combat, which means you play 3 rounds of combat, and even if nobody's dead or defeated, you kind of just rule who won the combat at that point, and
based on what you've shown in the first 3 rounds,
what you've seen so far, and what the consequences might be for losing or winning.
Yeah,
so you can move on. And I think that's good for this game. Other games I really like long tactical combats, but for this game, that's the way to go.
That's very cool. War Historian again in Twitch chat says it's a game of political intrigue to a large degree, and that sounds neat. I mean, other people have commented in Twitch about what I can't remember your name, but what a deep lore it has, and just hearing you talk about it, it feels like such a fleshed out setting. Has this ever translated media out of games? Has it ever been a movie?
You don't know about the seminal 1990s TV series, The Kindred?
No, I do not.
This game had a TV show based on it.
Wow.
And that TV show is very bad.
Is it a live action or was it animated?
Kindred the Embraced. Forgive me. I think Clancy or no, Chlorpedonk. Remind me. Kindred the Embraced. Yeah, because when you become a vampire, that they call that being embraced.
Right. I remember that. And it was a live action TV show, not
a live
animated.
action TV show. I believe it was. What do you call it when it's not always on the same channel?
Syndicated.
I believe it was. And it didn't have the budget it needed to do vampires well. And it just kind of said they can go out during the daytime, and didn't have the darkness problem where they have to be out at night. And so it kind of looked like an episode of 90210.
Interesting.
Not great for vampires.
It just sounds like such a fantastic setting, and the way you describe the alchemy and the different sort of classes of vampire, not just in terms of their aristocratic rank, but in terms of their biology, so to speak. Right.
You can play a vampire of the clan Nosferatu, and the Nosferatu clan are corpse-like and deformed. Or you could play a vampire of the Toreador clan, who are known for being extremely beautiful and sensual and sexual. So you can do all the different types of vampires that have been in media. You can play that type of vampire.
It's just, what's the core mechanic? What do you roll?
Yeah, so you have traits that are shown by dots on your sheet. And the amount of dots that you have, you combine an attribute that has a certain number of dots with a skill that has a certain number of dots to do anything. For example, strength plus athletics. And you roll that many d10s, and they have to get over a certain number. I think everything that's 6 or above, I believe. I might have to look again. Everything that's 6 or above is a success. But depending on what you're asking me to do as the storyteller, I might tell you, you got to have 3 successes here. And there's a lot of that. When I was playing, I would often be 2 successes, 4 successes, and it lets the players really stretch what they're capable of, which they should be able to because they're vampires. So they might say, I want to do this. I want to jump from one moving car to another. And if we were doing a strictly realistic game, adjudicating that would be tough. But in Vampire, I go, fine, give me 5 successes,
Right.
And because vampires have these like boosted stats from their powers and things, they could maybe
you're kind of superhuman. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's go to some callers here. I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on specifically Vampire the Masquerade, if you've played it. Also, if you wanted to get in on something we were talking about earlier, feel free. Corvus, if you're there, come on up. Corvus had their hand up for a little while, so I'm not sure if we missed them, but all right, I'm not seeing them. Let's move on to
Corvus wants to talk about the Bant at the beginning.
Hey,
Corvus.
All right, didn't see the thing that said accept.
All good, all good. How
You are
doing?
accepted, Corvus. We accept you.
The Jared and Joe show here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
What's going on?
That was the original title, the Jared and Joe show.
Well, welcome. What did you want to talk about?
I did play a little bit of Vampire the Masquerade, heavily home brew game. Years ago. Jared would know. It was the old book with the green cover and the rose. I don't know what edition that was, but
that was the second edition.
Second edition, then, yeah. So that's the one I played. I did a little bit of the LARP here near me in Albany, New York.
That's another thing, Joe. Because the game was so socially oriented, more about intrigue, it lent itself to LARPing a lot more. And so there were, for many years, and still to this day, huge LARPs based around Vampire the Masquerade.
Cool.
And you did some of the LARPing?
I did.
How did you like that? Was that fun?
I did 2 or 3 sessions of it. It was very weird. I did not know what I was doing. I essentially had somebody else make my character for me because all of the rules had changed in the last 3 generations of the game, oddly enough. And the idea was that the prince was retiring and she was picking out a new successor. And I was playing some power hungry person who had just woken up out of a torpor. And I was like, there's no way that my character wouldn't go for this. Mechanically, I have no idea what I'm doing, but from a role playing reasons, there's no way I would go for it. And I effectively ran unopposed. And then the game ended 2 or 3 sessions after that. So I guess I'm still the Prince of Albany here.
Nice. That's awesome.
Wow, what an honor. We have the Prince of Albany on
Prince of
Glass
Albany,
Cannon Radio
ladies and gentlemen.
1.
It's very weird. I was given this gigantic wooden sword to prove it. And the guy never came back for it. So I just still have it.
Were you playing in Albany?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is another thing I love about the game. It especially back in earlier editions would encourage you to play in your own city or your own kind of hometown and kind of create a sort of vampire underground in the place that you're from, which I think is so cool that people did that, because then speaking of shared knowledge, you can go oh, I know that bar, I know that restaurant, I know that, building. So pretty cool.
So yeah, other than that, I'm going to be in a Weird West style game that's also heavily homebrew. It's not going to be Vampire the Masquerade, but it's going to be a homemade system. And so there's going to be somebody who's a Cherokee werewolf, and there's going to be another person who's this, snake oil salesman witch and all this stuff. And I'm going to be Father Michael Cochran, the vampire priest and a Civil War veteran.
Cool, nice.
Cool. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Corvus, do you have an answer to the contest question?
The contest question? Yeah. How about the acting style of Nicolas Cage being either Cajun or just Cajun? Because much like Cage, it's not for everybody. Sometimes a little too much.
Cajun, that's really funny.
Cajun,
it's awesome. Either way, don't ask what's in.
I like Cajun a lot.
That is great. Thank you for the call, man. The Prince of Albany on our
Prince
phone.
of Albany, ladies and gentlemen.
This is just phenomenal. And it comes up with, that was another one that I honestly thought about. I thought about John Williams. I thought about Nicolas Cage. It's such a unique style of acting.
I thought he was going to say cagey, but Cajun is funnier.
Cajun is funnier.
Yeah.
It is objectively funnier. Let's get Farrell up here. Farrell, can you join here? Farrell Cat.
Hey guys.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic.
Wonderful. What did you want to talk about? You want to talk about Vampire the Masquerade?
I want to talk about Vampires of Pittsburgh.
Oh
yes.
And so I was big in Stream of Blood. I actually put in the Twitch chat earlier, #bring back Vampire Church. Because
that's what we called it, because we played Sunday mornings.
Sundays.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. And that was really towards like the beginning of my introduction into like ttrpgs in general. I started with Glass Cannon right around beginning of 2020. And then when you guys connected for some Blades in the Dark, I found Stream of Blood and started listening, and I was totally hooked with Vampire the Masquerade. And I live an hour north of Pittsburgh, so it was super fun to be able to listen to a game. I felt like all those people who live in New York City who are just used to seeing the sights in all movies and television. And it was nice to be like, hey, we're going to go spend today's episode at Kennywood and the theme park in Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can picture exactly where they are at this moment. And so that really made it fun for me.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad you had fun with that show. That was one of the, I loved that show. I loved doing it. And I mean, come on, I had Ross Bryant.
Right.
I had Ashley Birch, and I had Abubakar Salim. I mean, what a cast,
In
sounds incredible.
Season 1, you had Thomas Middleditch as well.
And I did have Thomas Middleditch in season 1. Yeah, I mean, the best, the greatest.
It was fantastic. And then having the Inquisition? Is that what it's called?
Right, the enemies of the vampires are the second Inquisition.
To come in and try and take them out at one point. And you had Josephine McAdam and Nora, and just so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, I gotta do another vampire series at some point. I think I could go back.
We have been raving about it in the chat that GCN needs a Vampire the Masquerade game.
Yeah, we've talked about this many times over the years.
More of vampires in Philadelphia and get Joe in as a player.
Yeah, there you go.
Who would be better than Joe, Mr. Philly, to be
that is what we did on New Game Who Dis. We played Vampire the Masquerade in Philadelphia. And Skid was a vampire boxer. Like an old boxer.
So cool.
So cool.
Farrell, give us an answer to the contest question.
So I was thinking about this, and I had my answer right away, and then I was trying to think of the adjective. And so I went with an adjectival phrase to give you something a little more Capodicasian.
Okay.
And the answer I had was Tim Burton.
Okay. Great.
Because he is
a very definite style. Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. And I decided of the Burton variety.
Of the Burton variety.
Of the Burton variety.
This style is of the Burton variety.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, Farrell. That's great. Tim Burton definitely is definitely a unique style. We got to keep it moving here, man.
Yeah,
we do. This is so much fun, but we also wanted to talk a little Superman. James Gunn, who's been mentioned several times already on this show, is working on Superman, and both of us were buzzing about the trailer that dropped, and then we were like, "Stop, save it for the show. Let's talk about it on the show." And I know, like most things so far, particularly David Lynch and Vampire the Masquerade, you seem to have a much deeper backlog of Superman knowledge than I do, but I was excited about the trailer. So, what stood out to you about the trailer? And are you excited for this? Are you nervous for this? How you feeling?
I'm excited because James Gunn knows how to direct a superhero movie. He has some of the best ever. The earlier caller who mentioned The Suicide Squad, I think that's the best DC Comics movie that's been made. I really do. At least in this more recent round of DC Comics movie. You could maybe argue the Christopher Reeve Supermans or something. But and then the Guardians of the Galaxy. So he really knows how to make these like movies work, and he knows how to make them funny and entertaining and action packed. So I'm super excited that he's kind of directed this thing. And then the trailer looks awesome. I mean, they're putting a bunch of stuff in that you never have seen in previous Superman movies. Like Crypto is in this.
I mean, right out of the gate. Like out of the gate.
Very on board for Crypto.
Okay.
Super
I was curious how you would feel about Crypto.
Oh, Crypto is to me, a core part of the mythology, Joe. And then I'm so excited that we get to see some side characters. Now, sometimes I'm a little nervous when they add too many extra characters to a Superman movie, but we've already seen a lot of Superman movies where you don't have any other superheroes in them. So I'm super, super pumped that we get to see Guy Gardner, played by Nathan Fillion. Guy Gardner is you know Guy Gardner, Joe?
No.
Oh, Guy Gardner is the Green Lantern who is an asshole. He's just like a big jerk to everyone. He's like a terrible human being with lots of bad habits, and he has one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, a Green Lantern ring. So that's who Guy Gardner is. And we also get to see Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific. Do you know who Mr. Terrific is?
No.
Mr. Terrific is like a doctoral physicist. He's like one of the smartest men on the planet. He's also an Olympic athlete. He's like the perfect man who has done it all on his own, like Batman. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But he's Mr. Terrific, and he has his T-spheres, which are these like little floating drone spheres that he uses, like he can program to do all kinds of like really useful things or fight for him. So Mr. Terrific, I'm really, really, really pumped to see Mr. Terrific. I like the cast. I mean, the trailer really got me excited.
I mean, speaking of Nicholas Hoult, we just got done talking about Nicholas Hoult for a while.
That's the one controversial thing for me. I don't know about a Nicholas Hoult Lex Luthor. That's the only thing I'm a little iffy on. And Nicholas Hoult is a good actor, but I would have thought he had anything Lex Luthor-ish about him.
Why?
He's more of an ingenue. You know what I mean? Like in Nosferatu, it makes sense because that's supposed to be a young, innocent, naive sort of character. Lex Luthor is the opposite of that. Lex Luthor is like one step ahead of everybody, the most cynical man, you could possibly imagine.
An evil mastermind.
Yes, and not at all ingenue like very adult, like older is generally how Lex Luthor has been played, is a bit of an older gentleman. So I'm
Do you wonder if James Gunn is trying to do a take on this that is like a more sympathetic Lex Luthor, where there's a more I mean, not that Lex Luthor is not three-dimensional, but like I don't know, even an added layer of complexity to it.
Well, let me say, I think that if you want to do a more sympathetic take on Lex Luthor, that's a great idea, and it's been done in the comics very well. I recommend people read Lex Luthor Man of Steel by Brian Azzarello. It's really great, and it's sort of a comic from Lex Luthor's point of view. So yeah, if they want to do a more sympathetic Lex Luthor, I'm open to that. I'm completely open to that.
But it could still be a different actor. Gratuitous D in Twitch chat says Mark Strong would make a good Lex.
Mark Strong would have been good, Luthor. But unfortunately, this is an A-level movie, and Mark Strong is the guy you go to after 3 people have turned you down.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
I dug. I mean, of course, I dug it. I'm not a big trailer guy. I don't know if you know this about me, but I hate watching trailers of things I want to see because I feel like they always reveal too much. And even in this one, I was like, "God, come on! Like you're already showing the end of the movie." And
me too. Me too. By the way,
what's that?
Oh, me too about trailers. I completely
it's
agree.
just a little bit too much. I love teases, but when you show a little too much. But I loved seeing some of the, shot by a gun-ish, to quote Roberto.
Yes.
The shot by a gun like action. Like when they cut to that scene of the explosion and there's like the little girl and how like in slow motion he gets in there and blocks the damage to the child. It was like, oh, that's so good. Like this is what I love when about how James Gunn's take on superhero movies, how those are done. It was just like, oh.
My favorite moment is when the guy throws the can at Superman and it goes bunk off of Superman's head.
Yeah. And it tufts his hair up a little bit. I mean,
the physics of that is like perfect.
Yes. It's amazing. You know what I thought when I saw that? I was like, that guy is the guy that makes negative, disparaging comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, why would you throw a can at Superman?
He's an alien. Earth for Earthlings.
It's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
Just so bizarre. Discord chat mentioned Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, which we never mentioned Buffy during that whole conversation. But that's a good point. Man, could do a whole thing on Buffy down the line, of course.
And we will. Let's do a Buffy segment one day.
Put it on the list.
We should do that. Put it on the list.
Put it on the list.
Who's keeping the list? I think it's supposed to be me. Hold on.
Oh man, Jen with two N's in Twitch chat says a Philly guy would throw a can at Superman. An Eagles fan would throw a can at Superman. No,
Superman,
come on.
don't go to Philly after they've just won a major game.
A major sports game, as Jared calls them.
I almost said that.
I'm definitely. I'm excited. I mean, I think that these things can get a little overhyped. I also like, for God's sakes, I hate just referring to actors by their big role, but Mrs. Maisel, I can't remember her name at the moment.
Yeah, Rachel Brosnahan.
Yes, that's right. Rachel Brosnahan.
Did I get that right? I hope I did.
Yeah, that is right. I've enjoyed her work a great deal, and so I think that casting is cool, and the guy who is playing, speaking of Philly guys throwing cans at Superman, if I'm not mistaken, the guy playing Superman is from Philly. He was born in Philly.
Oh, really?
Grew up in
David
Philly.
Cornsweet?
Yeah, I think he's from Philly.
I thought that David Cornsweet was British.
Well, he might have been born in Philly and then moved immediately to England.
Let's find out about David Cornsweet. He's an American actor. Early life, Philadelphia. Joe, I apologize.
Thought I heard
Joe, I owe you an apology. Earlier, I said that you might be wrong, and you were right.
It is pretty shocking these days, isn't it, to see like an extremely handsome
to see you be right?
lead in a yes, that too, but to see a stunning, handsome young lead in a movie and have them not be British, it's shocking.
It is. Yes. I'm probably thinking of Henry Cavill, who is British, and he played Superman in an earlier
Superman.
version. So
yes, Spitfire in chat says very British name though. Yes,
Cornsweet is a British name.
Yes, very very British name. So obviously more to come on that. I mean, we're going to touch on Superman in the summer. Of course, we'll all be talking about it. Come to Glass Cannon Radio for a full breakdown and weigh in on what you thought about the film.
If people want to get into Superman, I really recommend a recent run of comics by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Philip Kennedy Johnson is a great writer. He's kind of a newly famous comic book writer, and he did a Superman storyline in Action Comics called the War World Saga. You gotta read the War World Saga. It's the best Superman comics I have read in a very, very long time, and it will make you think the character is cool.
Nice. Let's take a call or two on Superman before we wrap up here with Book Club. We're going to go into Book Club here in a second, but I want to see what Harry 1385 has to say. Harry?
Oh wow!
Hi.
Oh, it's amazing.
Hi, Harry. Welcome.
This is sort of like your dream come true getting to talk to us, right, Harry?
It's a dream come true to be in a time frame where I can actually join because I'm from the UK. So.
You actually are British. You should have been Superman.
Are you friends with David Cornensweat?
Yeah, we hang out all the time down the pub, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thanks for calling in from across the pond there, Harry. Appreciate it.
Yes, I love Superman so much. I love we're going to finally have a Lex Luthor whose main plot isn't just some land deal, which has been like the last 3 Lex Luthors.
Yes.
My favorite description of the problem with previous Lex Luthors is just comic book Lex Luthor. If Superman's gone for like a couple of years, he'll become president. But in the movies, he's just like Trump. He's nothing. Yes. He's just a shitty business guy.
Real estate developer.
Actually, he's not really like Trump. He has more ethical backbone.
Oh yes, absolutely. He would be
Lex Luthor. Yes.
But yeah, love. Everybody recommend All Star Superman. Maybe my favorite, like limited run of like a short run of Superman ever. It's incredible.
One? Wait, sorry, what was
All Star Superman?
All Star Superman. Incredible. Superman. Grant Morrison, brilliant. Frank Quitely. Have you read it, Joe?
No.
Quit being an asshole and read All-Star Superman.
I told you this show, I'm going to learn a lot. That's the whole point.
So good. It has the best Superman takedown of Lex Luthor, where he's like, Lex Luthor gets the powers of Superman. It's like, I could have saved the world. And he's like, well, you could have done this the whole time. You were just obsessed with taking me down. Lex Luthor believes himself a good person, but will just, is too obsessed with Superman to actually do any good.
Yeah.
So Harry, you're going to be a day of release viewer here. You'll be there on July 11th or whenever it comes out.
Yes. So excited to see it. Not been too happy with the recent Superman stuff. So
yeah, let's cleanse that. Yeah, get a fresh take. Harry, do you have an answer to the contest question? Did you hear our contest question earlier?
I do. Mine is for George Miller.
Oh yes,
he has such an insanely different filmography. Like he has the Mad Max films, but he also did Happy Feet and Babe.
Happy Feet and Babe. So how are you going to tie this all together into one sort of adjective?
So, the way I see it is like George Miller puts a lot of himself, his personal experience in his films. He was a paramedic. He was an ER doctor. It's like in Fury Road. There's constantly people about like fixing people up, and Max is considered valuable as a resource because he's a universal donor. So it's like he's putting himself a lot in these. So that would be a Miller heavy film, whereas something like Babe 2, Pig in the City would be described as Miller light. That's my scale.
Excellent.
Great, great job, contest Harry. Answers this show.
Yeah, just fantastic out of the gate. I mean,
knocking it out of the park.
This award is going to be well deserved by whoever wins it, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, let's talk a little book club. This is something you and I talked about. We were like, what's something we could just do at the end of the show, that might recur here and there as things come up. And you said, or I said, how about we talk about what book we're reading at the moment? Because I'd love to talk to you about it for a second. And you were like, yeah, let's call it book club. And then I just started thinking, like, what if we start getting a book club like a Glass Cannon Radio book club going, where we suggest a book, we all read it. A month later, we take calls on it. We could do that kind of thing. So
hey, get in the Discord for GCR for Glass Cannon Radio and suggest books that you think that we should all read for book club, and me and Joe will read it, and hopefully some of the other listeners will read it, and we'll do it. I think that's a great idea, Joe.
Yeah, I think it's really fun. The problem with this crew is that we're going to get a lot of 1,200-page fantasy novels as the suggestion.
Well, if you suggest a 1,200-page fantasy novel, probably less likely it will get picked. But it would be great to stick to the sci-fi fantasy sort of,
Absolutely. And we could also, I'm not saying I'm opposed to doing these in parts, right? Like, you'd be like, we read the first half of this book. What did you think?
Right.
Are you going to keep reading it?
I read the back cover, I mean,
right.
Can I weigh in too?
Jared,
I don't believe in literacy.
What are you reading right now?
So I've read 2 books so far in 2025. One was called The Sundial, and it's by my favorite author, Shirley Jackson, who writes horror.
Yeah.
She wrote the Haunting of Hill House.
The Haunting of Hill House, and I loved that. There were some nights it did actually scare me, like a book. I was in bed alone at night reading, and I was like, I have to stop for tonight because this is getting a little like,
She writes psychological horror, and what I mean by that is the scary part is the way people think and what might or might not be true about what they believe, you know?
Yes.
So The Sundial is about a dysfunctional, rich family. They're all terrible people. They live in this big mansion on the hill, and then one of them has a religious type vision where she sees that the world is going to end, and the people in that mansion are the only people who are going to survive.
Oh my God.
And then whether or not they start believing it and how they start acting on this vision becomes the plot of the book. And man, is it good. It's like, these are the most terrible people. You don't want to inherit the earth. And you don't know whether it's real or it's fake or it's a delusion the whole time. It's just fantastic.
That's awesome.
And then the other book I just finished is a more recent book from, I think, the 2000s. And it's called Come Closer by Sarah Gran. And it is also a horror novel. This is a horror novel about possession, like demon possession, but it's first person from the point of view of someone who is being possessed. So this female character keeps like blacking out, and when she comes to, she's done horrible things.
Oh my God.
And it's really scary and really messed up. And it ramps up very slowly. Like at first, the demon starts by sending like despicable notes to her boss with like horrifying language in them. But by the end of the book, the things that this woman is being forced to do by the demon are harrowing. So that's Come Closer by Sarah Gran. I had a very horrific January so far.
For real. I mean, is this your normal go-to? Like, horror novels?
Well, I'm working on reading everything Shirley Jackson ever wrote, which is there aren't that many novels, so I'm almost done. And so I always start the year off with a Shirley Jackson. I have for like 4 or 5 years.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, that's something I like to do is if there's an author I really like, I try to slowly, year by year, read everything that they've done.
That's a great idea. And I mean, you're off and running. It's only January 22nd. You've already got a book under your belt. You're on to the next.
I try to read 2 books per month and get to about 24 or 25 a year. And people would say the numbers are not important, but they are to me, Joe.
Wow. That's very impressive. I do not read that fast. I'm more of like, however, my current reading is an exception.
What are you reading?
So I just finished a book that I also just read at the top of 2025 because it was given to me as a gift by my brother-in-law who does our sports gambling show, The Degenerate Dungeon, Hollywood Hagen. Gave me a book that I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It was called, this is a very famous book that in the nerd world that I did not know about, hadn't heard about. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. It's a nonfiction book about making video games, about the people that make video games. And I was like, oh, I love video games. Sure, I'll check it out. I never thought about reading a book about how they're made. But, that sounds interesting. I'll check it out. And wow, I absolutely flew through it. Each chapter was just a game. And it was the story of that release. And it would just be so harrowing, so intense. All of the business stuff, the corporate overlords, the artists that are trying to make their vision come to really, really great book. And I didn't know about it. After getting halfway through it, I was like, this is so fantastic that I have to I got to look this guy up. I got to figure out what else. And here he's written multiple books. This was his first. It has achieved a lot of success in terms of.
What's his name? Do you have it?
It is. Oh my God! I just blanked on it.
I'll look it up. But what are his other books?
Jason Schreier, McD chimed in. Thank you. Yes, that's right. Jason Schreier. He was at the time in 2017 when the book came out, he was the news editor at Kotaku, which is a great video game news site.
Yep.
And He has written a few books since then, and I checked, like you said, I was like, oh, I like to read everything they write. As soon as I finished this, I was like, I gotta read more. By the way, I mentioned to you pre-show, something happened in the minutes before we went live, and I was like, remind me to talk about this on the show. And this, because I'm reading this book, and there was this one fascinating part where like, this seems kind of obvious, but the way that they lay it out, this one particular developer explains how you can have 200 people working on a game with 1,000 playtesters, and you can, for 5 years, run iterations of these aspects of the game and run, things to try to catch bugs like over and over and over and over and over again, and do thousands and thousands and thousands of iterations of this thing. And as a developer, for a fact that the second you release the game, or you have an open beta, or you do early access on Steam, the second you release something, the volume at which the players take that and start doing it, it's astounding how in an instant you will see hundreds of things you've never seen. Like that are problems with the game, little bugs, little hiccups, little like things that and you're just like, how could we for all of these years have been working on this? And he's like, over time, you realize that no matter what you do, you will never actually get it complete before it is played by a lot of people to poke in every corner of the game and really figure out what could change. And so, yeah, right before we went live, I noticed a little problem, and we have been talking about this show for months. We have been doing tech checks for weeks and weeks, testing all these different things. Right. And immediately, the second we went live, something happened. And I was like, oh my God, we never thought of this and never talked about it. Like, that is so funny. It was a very minor thing. Nobody would really notice, but it's like, put that on the list. That has to get fixed before next time. But anyway, loved it. But anyway, this show has been an incredible success, in my opinion. Oh my God, I've loved it. This has been so fun. I can't believe it's coming to an end. I mean, it absolutely flew by. So anyway, I highly recommend that. We may not have time for any more callers, right? No, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't think we do. But in future book club segments, I definitely want to get people to call in and tell us what they're reading or what they think we should read. And if we actually develop a book club at some point, I'd love to have people call in and get their thoughts on a book we're all reading. I think that would be awesome. And guys, please get in the Discord for GCR and tell me what you're reading, or tell me what you suggest for the GCR book club, because I would love to have a book discussion with the Naish. So please hop on there and let us know what you think. Yeah. All right. So let's give away this awesome headset here. This Bluetooth gaming headset. I've been thinking about this the whole time. What incredible answers the whole way through, up to starting at the beginning, but up to Miller Lite. I mean, like, so many great answers. Yeah, it's really hard to decide. I like you for UA Ball. Yep, I love that one. I'm going to post this in the Discord chat so we can just see it one more time. The list as they were given by the callers. You guys did an amazing job. Really knocked it out of the park. I'm just going to go ahead and we've done this a few different ways in the past when we were testing this, where we picked a few, see if we have any crossover. So of this whole list, I'm going to pick my 3 favorite. Okay. And you pick your 3 favorite, and let's see if we have any crossover. If we have only one crossover, we'll just declare them the winner. If we have a couple crossover, we'll go to McD to break any ties. Let's see. We had, oh man, yeah, definitely. And I'll do one more. Yeah, that's going to be mine. I've got mine. You got yours? What are yours? All right, mine are, I gotta say, my number 1 is Bay Area. I think that was amazing. I think that was a fantastic answer, and it just cracked me up. I also added EU, which was great, and then Cajun for Nicolas Cage. Yeah. So those are exactly my top 3, honestly. And amazing. My number 1 is the Bay Area. Okay, so I think we don't have to go to a tiebreaker this time. We're going to go to Scram. Scram wins it with Bay Area to describe Michael Bay-like films, which I think is an awesome style. Answer. There's a definite style there, yeah. There's a definite style there. There's a definitive sort of, you see it, you know what it is. And I will forever, I mean, because of Scram's answer, I'm literally going to refer to films like that. I'm going
to say that now.
Are
Yeah,
massive,
for sure.
like explosions, huge action, over the top. I'm going to be like, oh, this looks like a film in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Great work, Scram. If you can hang in Discord here for a second, we'll McD will ping you directly, and we'll get your address and stuff. We'll ship this thing right out to you. So that is awesome. I think that wraps her up,
Scram.
Jared.
That's it.
I think that wraps up
What
Glass
a
Cannon Radio
fantastic
#1
first show. We were fantastic, but more importantly, you guys were fantastic. So thank you so much for making this a fun conversation.
We're going to be back in a week every Wednesday, live, 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, 9 a.m. Pacific, on twitch.tv/The Glass Cannon. And if you want to get on the call, if you want to be part of the show, like our amazing callers were today, you can get it on Discord, on the Glass Cannon Network Discord. Just go to jointhenaish.com and sign up there. If you're not already, you can get a 30-day free trial by using the code GCN30. So thanks again, everybody. We'll, who knows what we're going to talk about next week. We haven't planned it yet because we're going to try to stay topical, right? Like, well, what's in the news, what's coming up for all of us, the stuff that we're into. So we'll have a new ep next week. And yeah,
all right.
I think
Thanks,
that's it. Oh, a huge thank you to McD, too. McD has done an absolute ton of work. McD, our producer on this show, a ton of work producing this show behind the scenes, all the tech that went into it. As you can see, if you're watching the Twitch stream, it has a lot more bells and whistles than our other shows because we've been thinking about this for a while and a way to put it together. And I think that McD did a fantastic job. So thanks, good buddy. And that wraps her up.
That wraps it up. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Take it easy. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week.
See you on the
Later.
flippity flip. Bye-bye.